All right, everybody, on behalf of Reliant Title, I want to welcome you guys to the Elite Eight. March Madness is in full swing, so I wanted to just have some fun with that theme. We're going to talk about 8 elite strategies to help you win in the craziest market in history. And then at the end of the class today, I'm going to ask you to share with me the one that you guys are going to put into play. And don't worry, there's some for every personality type, every strategy, prospecting type, every skill level. So no matter where you're at, there is definitely something that will fit and that will make sense for you. So without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to just dive right into the Elite Eight and then wrap up with the summary. So nothing crazy. And I know everybody, so I'm going to skip doing my full intro, but thank you guys for coming back, right? Another week, another Zoom. So thank you guys for being here and being on. All right, let's dive in. We are in the craziest market in real estate history. So I want to lay out a game plan with 8 different strategies to make sure you take advantage of that. Now, what I'm asking you to do is not leave here saying that you're going to try to do all 8, because it is absolutely impossible. And there is no way you will be successful at all 8. So listen to all 8 and then narrow it down to 1, 2 at the most. I'd really like it to just be 1 if I'm being honest with you, but I will allow 2, but no more than 2, right? No putting into action all these things that we're not going to be able to do or be good at if we hit all 8 of them. So kind of the format, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to give you a strategy, and then I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions with a bunch of ideas to kind of stimulate and get that strategy going and get that strategy off the ground. And no matter which one works for you, just keep in mind it might not be the same one for your neighbor if you have different personality styles, different skill or experience levels, or just different, goals in the business. So whatever one you pick, don't let that affect your neighbor. Number 1, focusing on getting educated and educating. I think this is a big difference. Not just the education, right? I obviously want you on the Zoom calls every week and in the Facebook group and learning from your board and whoever else you learn from. But are we then spinning that around and training and teaching our database, right? So ask yourself a couple questions. Number 1, what are you learning every week? Some of the times you're learning something from me. Some of the times you're learning something from your market or maybe things that you hear in the news. Whatever you're learning every week is great. But who are you teaching that to every week? Is your database getting something every week from you that is a teaching moment for them, right? As you learn all these good things, that is great, but are we putting that into action and are we putting that into the hands of our database? A lot of times realtors, inherit all this knowledge, right? We become the kings and queens of almost useless facts, I want to say, right? About a transaction, about the market, about what's going on in the area. But do we do the best job of telling that story out to our people? And usually the answer is no. And all that knowledge is worthless if it's just sitting on our bookshelf somewhere or trapped in our brain. So what are we learning every week and what are we teaching every week? And that's going to kind of be a theme through this whole slide. As you learn this stuff, are you just learning it? Or are you telling the story and teaching your database? So are you up to date on the market trends? Your MLS sends out once a month what it's looking like for the board month over month, year over year. You hear stats on the news all the time, sometimes in my Facebook group, sometimes from your vendors, wherever it is, you're hearing these stats all the time about the market. And you, truthfully, are usually the ones that knows these things the best. Because what happens is when people want to get real estate news, they might watch CNBC and get a couple minutes of it every day. But in general, they go to the news or they go to Facebook or Instagram or they talk to someone and they get their little piece of news and it's not always right and it's not always accurate. Are you up to date on the market trends that are hyper local and accurate for you? Because what they're saying on national news is not what's happening in your zip code, in your subdivision, in your farm area. So when you learn this and you get this knowledge on the market trends in a certain area, how are you telling that story? How are you teaching it to people that you know? And are you up to date on the real estate related topics that are not just regarding prices? So mortgages, right? Mortgages over the last 6 months has been a topic that if you haven't been up to date on, you probably haven't been guiding your clients in the best way. So are you staying up to date on those? Are you staying up to date on transaction trends? So as we see things happening and Kim educates you or someone in your market educates you about what's happening on a transaction or with paperwork or with wire fraud is a common one, right? We had a big wire fraud case last week, all through Fidelity, right? Big wire fraud issues have been coming back again. Are we staying up to date on these things and are we educating our people on them? We're working on getting a wire fraud continuing ed thing together that I'm hoping to bring to you guys. But when we bring that to you, are you then bringing that to your clients? Because it's not usually you guys that are the victims or the problems in the wire fraud, right? It's the clients or third parties. So as these things happen that are real estate related, but don't necessarily affect the value of a home, are we teaching that to our public regularly and being that kind of content place for them to go for education? Most people don't shoot their shot or don't make their move simply because of education. And what are you doing to help them? There is still a large part of our country that believes that you cannot buy without a 700 credit score and 20% down. Now that might not seem crazy, or that might seem crazy, and you might think, oh, there's no way. I know that's not true, but you're in this business every minute of every day, right? Other people only move 2, 3, 4 times in their whole lifetime, and they get their information. Maybe they leave their parents who maybe are renting, and they move from their parents. And what do they do naturally? They go and rent, right? Because they just don't know. How would they know any better? So what are you doing to help the people that are just not educated? So strategy number one is educating yourself, but also educating, I don't even want to say the public, I want to say your database, right? Strategy number one, educating yourself, and then telling that same story and going out there and educating your database, your farm areas, the people that are important to you or the people that you're trying to do business with. Strategy number two, become your own local. I probably should put the word local in there, but become your own HGTV. I want you to think about how HGTV took off. All they did was really like house hunters, right? They followed realtors around different cities, had buyers that somehow always found a way to buy something when they only looked at 3 houses, and they filmed it. And that was it. And that was the beginning, right? And now obviously HGTV has grown. But when we look at that, they grew without the help of social media, right? Without the aid of Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, all this crap that we have now. They grew without any of that, and they still blew up our profession in a crazy way, right? But when you think about it, none of it is local. When we watch an episode of House Hunters, sure, they're shopping for houses locally, but what happens once a year, maybe that's in a town that you recognize or that you know where it is, or a couple times a year, it's in the state that you live in. Or maybe the city that you've been to or that you serve, right? It's not hyper local. So I want you to think, when people look for real estate content, where do they go? And usually there's 2 answers. It's usually something like HGTV, right? Something real estate TV show related, or Zillow. And we need to change that. We need to get them going through us to look at houses. Are they looking at houses through us when they're just bored and they don't want to bother a realtor yet? I get it. A lot of them are going through us when they're at the 11th hour. But are they doing it when they just want to scroll and look around, right? Or are we providing them a platform for that? When they want real estate content, they want to watch about, I don't know, flipping a house or design or house hunting. Are they going to us? Are they looking at us? Or are they going elsewhere? Usually the case is that they're going elsewhere, right? We have the advantage of social media that things like HGTV didn't have, right? When you look at how that content exploded, or how that channel and network and I guess lifestyle exploded, right? They did it on word of mouth and on having halfway decent content. And I don't even think it was that great, but they had it and they were the only ones to do it. But what did they do, right? When you look at their niches or niches, go look at, like, just later today when you get time, just spend 5 minutes and go on either whatever you use for cable or go on hgtv.com and just look at the schedule for their shows for the day, right? And what you'll notice is they take a lot of small niches and package them together to make content for the day, right? So you'll see House Hunters, where it's just following a realtor and buyers around. Then you'll see House Hunters International. Then you'll see 500 shows about flipping houses, right? That's like what they always put on. Then there'll be some design shows. Then there'll be how to renovate your room or your bathroom or your kitchen on a budget. Then there'll be the painting trends and the furniture trends and how to find something at a flea market and flip it into a beautiful piece of furniture in your house, right? These are all little individual niches that they have on there. All of these things we can create, guys. And most of them we're doing every day anyway, right? If you're working with buyers, there's your house hunters, right? If you're working with an investor, there's your flippers or something to do with your investor, right? If you're rehabbing or renovating, or anyone that is, or have a client that might be, there's that, right? If we're looking at new construction, like they do the dream home thing, there's that, right? We have all this available to us to create that local HGTV feel. And you might not like HGTV or think this idea is stupid, but that's okay. But we have to realize there are hundreds of millions of people consuming HGTV like content every day. And they want it to be local, but they don't have that option. The truth is there's almost no good local real estate content anywhere. right? There's a handful of decent YouTube channels out there, but other than that, even when you see $1 million listing New York, right? What do they actually do by the end of the season? What have they shown? It's 12 episodes, and what have they shown? 10 condos, right? It's all about the drama and who's sleeping with who and who's doing what here and who's doing what over there. But the people want that local real estate content, and just putting the word New York in there and making the whole thing happen in New York sets the stage for this show. We could do that same thing locally in any of our areas at any time, very easily for free. We can become that local HGTV. And at the end of the day, when people are looking to make a decision on real estate, they want to work with someone that they believe lives, works, and plays in the area that they want to live, work, and play in, right? So we always talk about know, like, and trust, and that is for sure true. But they want to work with the person that knows, lives, works, plays in the area that they want to live, work, and play in. And one of the easiest ways to do that and connect with those people in the hardest market ever is by creating your own pieces of content that drive people to that. So strategy number 2 is creating your own local HGTV. Strategy number 3, focus on helping those that have failed. I think this is the quickest path to money of all the ones that we're going to talk about today. It's also probably the most labor intensive. But focusing on those, helping those that have failed. Over the last 2 years, we've heard a lot of great success stories about how crazy the market is, but more people have failed in the last 2 years than have succeeded, right? The average, the last I saw the average for the state of Florida was when something gets listed, the average is that there are 13 offers on that property. So who wins in that, right? In theory, really only the seller wins because they're getting this crazy bidding war, but one person wins. There's one buyer that wins the house. 12 people lose. Every house that goes in the market, 12 people lose, maybe more, maybe less, right? But let's just say on average, 12 people lose every time. There are people failing in this market every day. And what happens? Agents give up on them. They give up on their agents, and these people need help, right? So think about FSBOs, right? We talked about FSBOs last time I saw you guys in person, but I want you to think about this for real. In 2021 was the first time ever that the average days on market for a FSBO and the average days on market for a home listed by an agent were the same. They were both 7. Now this is good, but it's also interesting, right? It's good for the FSBOs, but it's also interesting for them because it's making them give up quicker than ever before and throw their hands up and sit on the market for a long period of time. So we're starting to see on things like Zillow or RedX or whatever you use to kind of aggregate FSBO data, we're starting to see FSBOs sit longer and longer and longer and longer, which is good because these people are failing, and when they're failing, they need help, right? We look at expireds, and sure, expireds are nowhere near what they used to be or what they were 2 years ago, but there's still homes expiring every day, every week, every month. And these are people that are failing at the game today that need help. We look at old expireds. Think about people that expired 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. Those people are great because if they expired 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, their house is worth so much more now. If they expired 5 years ago, there's a chance their house is double what it was when they expired. So when we look at these people, they failed. People have moved on from them. They've given up, but we can help them. Think about buyers. Think about how many buyers are failing on every property. You guys might have some of them, right? Almost every agent I talk to has a failed buyer right now. Someone that was in good standing, made an offer and just got blown away, right? Someone paid $20,000 more, waived all the contingencies, or did something crazy. Think about renters, right? Some people have failed to rent, but a lot of renters have failed to buy. These are people that have gone back on the hamster wheel of renting, and they might never get off unless someone helps them. So we need to look at the people that have failed there. And I want you to think about investors because this one is really time sensitive. On April 1st, there's going to be a lot more investors failing than ever before, because if you haven't been paying attention to that, all the interest rates for anyone financing investment properties, second homes, Airbnbs, long-term rentals, flips, anything like that are getting bumped up, and they're going to get nasty. Right, the Fed is basically trying to take Fannie Mae and Freddie and balance out their portfolios so that there's less people in an investment property or a second home than there are potentially primary. Right now, the balance is off so much. There's more people investing than there are owning and having primary. So they're trying to balance that back out. So they're making the investor rates and the investor deals that are financed to get done much, much harder. So there are a lot of people that have been failing because some lenders have already been baking these in. And there are a lot of people that in the next week are going to fail massively on investing, and they're going to need to regroup and get some help. So focusing on where people are failing is good, because what's happening when we look at real estate all the way across the state, people are flooding into our business every day, right? When I was running my office a couple of years back, we used to get 50 new real estate agents to the county every week. Now the same county is getting 50 new real estate agents a day. So people are flooding in because they see money, right? And they think, oh, this is an easy chance for me to go in there and make a lot of money. So what are they focusing on? Nothing on this list, right? They're focusing on what's going to be the easiest task, the easiest money. And truthfully, nothing on this list is easy because these are people that have already tried and they failed somewhere else. So someone still needs to help them because their agents are giving up on them. They're giving up on their agents. They're giving up on the process. And a lot of times it's because they're not educated or they're not working with someone that has their best interest in mind. So working with people that have failed, are failing, or are about to fail is a great strategy if you want to succeed in this market. Number 4, create your unique value proposition. What makes you different? In a time where we need to stand out because there are so many realtors, why are you different? Right? If you ever take a Toastmasters class or anything to do with public speaking, one of the graduating things that they always make you do is what's your 30-second elevator speech? If you were in the elevator with a client in your business or in your field that had to make a decision between you and someone else, what would you say? Right? Why are you different? Why should they pick you over all of these others? And usually that comes down to how do they win with you? So is there something you do? Is there something unique to your transaction or your process or that they get from you or with you that makes them a winner with you where they might not somewhere else, right? And what are you passionate about? So is there something that you're passionate about helping people in? We need to start small, really tiny to grow a big, prosperous business. So if we look to start small, think of a niche that you're passionate about. Maybe it's veterans, maybe it's waterfront condos, maybe it's golf course communities, first-time home buyers, investors, whatever, right? But what are you passionate about that's going to help you stand out and be different from everybody else? And are you telling that story good enough so that other people know, hey, if I want to work with someone that really cares about veterans or police or first-time home buyers or whatever, this is the guy or this is the girl that I need to work with. That's how you build a big business, is by getting good at something small and marketing something small and then blowing that up. Number 5, geographic farming. This is one that whenever the markets get busy, people forget about or they stop paying attention to. However, this is where you grow. This is where you build that business now that you'll never give back as long as you stay consistent. So strategy number 5, create a geographic farming strategy as soon as possible that blows away all the rest. So first of all, you're going to ask yourself where you're farming. And some of the basics in farming, we need to incorporate direct mail, right? I'm not a huge direct mail fan. However, it is part of a farming strategy. We need to incorporate the pop buys and the holiday related things. So the flags on 4th of July and the pumpkins on Halloween, right? We need to be doing the events locally in the area or in the community or in the, at the community pool or at the local business that lives in or is inside of the community. Ask yourself, how often are you door knocking? And for a lot of people, they're going to say never, or we're not. And I understand that it's not fun. It's not sexy, especially as it gets hotter in the afternoon and it starts to rain every day, right? We don't always love doing it. And I get that. However, in the craziest market in the history of real estate, the strategy that you need to use is you need to build face-to-face relationships, and having the farm, doing all those things, and then door knocking on top of that is going to be how you get there. And then also, how much circle prospecting have you done? Are you hitting that neighborhood on the phone at least once a month with messages? If not, it's not going to work. But if you're doing all these things together, right, you can knock out, I used to call them the dinosaurs of a certain neighborhood, meaning someone that's had the perception that they've been the real estate agent of choice in there for years. You can knock them out in a month by doing all these things, right? By circle prospecting, door knocking, doing the monthly events, doing the direct mail, hitting all these things where they're getting 3, 4, 5 touches a month from you. It might be a total of 2 or 3 days worth of work, right? If you're working like, let's say, 100 home subdivision, you could knock 100 doors in a day. You could call 100 homes in a day. You could obviously send 100 postcards in a day. And whatever the next holiday that's coming up, you can, put out 100 flags in a day, right? So maybe it takes you a total of 4 days of work a month to be able to completely dominate this farm area. But if you consistently keep doing that, you will never give that market share back as the market flattens out and calms down. The people that build the business in the hardest time are the people that keep it, when things flatten out or get a little bit slower. And that's coming, guys. We can't keep going on this train that we're on. And we're already starting to see just all throughout the state little signs of things slightly slowing down, right? So we want to be building that geographic farm now, so that we have, prosperity coming out of it for years to come. Number 6, one of my favorite ones, find out the make me move number. This is actually probably my favorite. I love this because I'm a big believer that everybody has a number, right? And you think you might be sitting on this thing saying, oh, I love my house. I love where I live. I'm not moving. If I got you double what your house is worth, you would be packed before the end of this Zoom call, right? And everyone has a number, and it's your job to figure out what it is. Everyone also has a location, by the way, guys, that they want to move to. Like, less than 1 in 100 is living in their ultimate dream home. It's probably less than that. It's probably 1 in 1,000. Right. So there's 4 good questions that I like to ask people, and I'm going to give them to you in a second, to help understand what it would take to make someone move. And the good thing is that in the market that we're in today, very often the gap between where you're at and where that person is at, or where the market is at and where that person is at, a lot of times they think it's so far and it will never happen, so I'm not going to move. But a lot of times when we start bridging that gap and asking really good questions, it's way closer than we ever see. And I don't know about you guys, but I see all the deals come in all throughout the state, all throughout our brands. And I look at the MLS in my personal area every day, and literally every day for the last 2 years, I look at something and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe someone paid that much. I cannot believe that sold for that. Holy crap. I don't know if you guys do the same, but every day I see something that blows my mind. That the numbers make no sense, that no contingencies make no sense, waive appraisal, waive inspection, waive this, waive that, 50,000 over ask, let the seller lease it back for free for 6 months, send their kid to college, whatever the heck it is. You see these ridiculous things happening that when people think about their make me move number or make me move location or make me move situation, it's never as far off as you think in the crazy market that we're in. So here's some questions. Number one, if you're very high D direct, it's just everyone has a number, right? What's yours? Ask them what that number is. And most of the time they're going to say, oh, I don't know. And you say, great, just give me a number. What do you think your house is worth? 400. Great. What would it take for you to move? I don't know. I'd have to get 500. Great. What about 450? Well, yeah, that would be nice. Get 50,000 over. Great. Right. So in 1 or 2 questions, we just broke them down and said, okay, if they got 50,000 over market value, they'd move. You guys know as well as I do, that is happening literally every single day. That is not rare, right? That is happening every single day. The other one you get is they'll say, oh, I don't want to move. And this is one of my favorite questions. I know you don't want to move, but let's just say you were going to move. Where would you go? Right. And you will find that everybody has an answer, right? I love where I live. I have no interest in moving, but if I got the opportunity to move, where would I move? Sure. And I have a couple of spots in my mind that I'm sure you do too. You might think I love my house. It fits my kids for school, blah, blah, blah. Great. I don't want to move. I understand that. Let's just say you were going to move and you could go anywhere. Where would you go? Right? Everybody has somewhere in their head. Everybody has something. Third question, how much money would you have to clear from your house selling to make you move? A lot of times people would say, oh, if I clear 200, I'm out of here. Great. What's important about that? Well, I could put a fat down payment on somewhere else and put some money in my pocket and go buy a boat or a car or a watch or whatever, whatever I'm into. Awesome. When you start diving in and looking at that number, how much do you owe? How much is the house worth? Well, if we got 25,000 over market, you'd be there. Right. And that is happening every single day. Every day. That is not rare. It is happening literally every single day. And then one more, if you sold your home today, what would you do with the money? And some people are going to say, well, nothing. I mean, I need to buy another house. So like I would just put that money into another house and then it's great. What would that look like? Where would you go? But a lot of people say, you know what? I don't know. I'd rent for a year. I'd buy an Airbnb or I'd rent an Airbnb or I'd buy an RV and travel the country or buy a boat or whatever the heck it is. So many people have something in their head that when you ask them that 2 seconds later, bang, they have a response. And that response with 1 or 2 more good questions and some coaching and some guidance has a sign in that yard 3 days later. Right. So a lot of times people are scared to ask these questions because they're tough or because people will say, when you say, what's your number? Where would you go if you were going to move? And they say, oh, nowhere, I'm not moving. We just give up. Right. Everyone has somewhere. Every single person that you can think of that you've ever met, they live where they live right now, but if they could move, they would move to X, right? And it might be right down the street. It might be 2 houses closer to the water, the same town, but on the ocean, the same town, but bigger house, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. But everybody has somewhere that if the stars lined up, they would go. And we're in such a unique time in real estate where the stars are lining up for a lot of these people. So when you get this number, you get the make me move number, the make me move location, this should go into your database, with a tag that just says Joe Smith would move if we sold his house for 500. And then you put that on your board of off-market listings. That's Joe Smith's house in Deland for 500, where when you get someone looking for something off market, you say, what can you spend? They say 500. You say, great, I have an off-market listing. The guy's only going to move or the girl's only going to move if he gets 500. I think the house is really worth, I don't know, 450, 475. but he'd move at 500. You want to check it out, right? And you start piecing these things together that no one thought was possible. The sellers didn't think they were sellers. The buyers didn't think they were a buyer. And all of a sudden these things come together just by a couple of easy questions. So if you're not finding someone's make me move number or their make me move location, personally, I think you're missing out. I love strategy number 6, the make me move. All right, number 7, targeting your marketing in the correct places. Are you spending the right time, the right dollars, the right marketing pieces, and are you sending them to the right places and the right people? For most, truthfully, the answer is no, they're not, right? We're marketing, we're just making a post on Facebook and hoping somebody sees it. But I want you to think of 4 key areas. First of all, before we even get into this, all I hear around the state, I hear this all the time. Oh, listings are impossible, right? Nobody's listing their home. No one's doing any listings. It's impossible to find a listing. In 2021, more transactions happened in Florida than ever in the history of Florida. So when we look at that, I don't know about you guys, but if a transaction happens, that means there needs to be a buyer and a seller. So someone needs to buy and someone needs to list, right? So we're telling ourselves these stories, or we're letting the news or the data tell us these stories that there's no sellers out there, which is just flat out untrue. So we need to look at this and think, the first bullet here, who did you send a CMA to last week? If you have a buyer right now, if you are working with a buyer right now, and you did not send a CMA last week, you are not servicing that buyer correctly. If you are just waiting and hanging on for something to pop up on the MLS and hope that you can, beat out 53 other people for that same house, you're not servicing them, right? So who are you sending a CMA to every week? Who are you targeting your marketing to for your buyers that are going to bring you sellers, which, by the way, then you get both sides of the deal, which is nice. And we like that for title too. It's much easier. But think about who you're sending a CMA to. And if a week goes by and you're not sending a CMA, you're doing it wrong, right? You're just absolutely doing it wrong. You're not targeting your marketing correctly. Just posting a post on Facebook that says, who wants to sell their house? The market's crazy is not good enough. Get it in the hands of the people that would put a deal together. Second, what off-market opportunities are you exploring? Are you working things that are off the market right now? Are you working absentee owners, right? Are you working delinquent taxes? People that are off the market, not thinking about selling, but the situation would be good for them to sell. What about distressed? Have you checked in on any distressed sellers lately? I realize these are not all the rage right now because no one's talking about them, but guess what, guys? Still about 5% of the state is either short sale, lis pendens, foreclosure, right? And 5% of our state is huge amounts of numbers. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions are in distress right now. And who do you know that might be in currently or was in forbearance? We spoke about that a little bit the last time I was with you guys, but if you forget, the last day to actually file COVID-related forbearance was Halloween 2021, so October 31st, 2021. Now, if they go through the entire forbearance process, that process can take up to 18 months. So we're going to see people still in forbearance in 2023. So who do you know that is in or was in or is just coming out or is struggling with it? Because those are fantastic sellers. Those are fantastic people to be marketing to right now. So are we targeting our market to sellers that match our buyers? Are we targeting our marketing to off-market properties? Are we targeting our marketing to the distressed segment of the market? And are we targeting our marketing to those in or around forbearance? And number 8, last strategy to succeed in the market. Are you becoming the real estate resource for any and all? So here's what I mean. Are you the local economist of choice? Does someone come to you when they want to learn about prices, rates, interest rates, mortgage rates, all that stuff? Are they coming to you for that? If not, this is the step you need to take. Do you have the best, and I mean the best vendor list in the area? Obviously, we hope we're on there as the choice for title, and I'm sure you have a mortgage person and a mover. But what about someone for window treatments and tile and paint and electrician and pool person and landscaping and landscape architect and cutting the grass and power washer, right? Do you have all those people? When someone thinks I need something for my asset, do they think about you? If not, they're also not going to think about you when it comes time to sell the house, right? Are you the go-to for small businesses? Are you the go-to for the best spots to eat and drink and hang out and work out and take the dog and all that stuff? You need to be that number one local resource for any and all, because if you are, you also will be the number one resource when it comes time to buy or sell the house. And I want you to think about this because I hear this one all the time. A lot of people will say, oh, I don't know anyone here. I'm from Chicago. I'm from Manhattan. I'm from California, whatever. Great. If someone in any location, wherever they are at, thinks about real estate, do they think about you? Now, if you live in DeLand, I don't expect you to have the best real estate agents and the best vendor list in Chicago. I do expect you to be able to make 2 phone calls and figure out who does so you can connect them. And if you are really that real estate resource for any and all in your database, you'll just pour in the referrals. And I'll tell you, that's not a bad way to live, to make 25, 30, 40, 50% off something without doing any work. Nothing wrong with that, right? But are we the person that they think of, whether they're locally, or whether they're local or they're far? Are we the person that they think of at all, or at the top of the list when they think about real estate? Or is it only when we remind them or when we reach out to them? So what I want you to do is I want you to think about which one you will choose and pick one of these, not more than one. I want you to pick one. Are you going to focus on getting educated and educating others on the process, the market, what it takes to be successful in this market? Are you going to focus on becoming your own local HGTV where you're creating content and using social media to be the go-to, local expert? Are you going to focus on number 3? Focus on helping those that have failed. Are we going to help the FSBOs, the expireds, the old expireds, the failed buyers, the failed tenants, the failed investors? Are we going to do number 4? Are we going to create a unique value proposition and tell the world how they win with us and what makes us better than the other, hundreds of thousands of realtors in our state? Are we going to do number 5? Create a geographic farming strategy ASAP that includes direct mail, door knocking, phone calls, pop buys, events. Are we going to do number 6? Find out every person in our database's make me move number or make me move location and dive in there. Are we going to do number 7? Target our marketing into the correct places, sellers that match our buyers, off-market properties, distressed properties, and forbearance people. And number 8, are we going to become the real estate resource for any and for all, so that anytime anyone thinks about anything that's real estate related or local area related, they think about us. So pick one of those and run with it. As always, thank you guys for your business. We appreciate it. Kerry, thank you as always for the slides and making everything look nice. Coming up next week, we are going to do on 4-4. I can't believe it's April next week. Insanity. We're going to do 4, just to stick with the numbers. We're going to do 4 of the most common objections that sellers are giving today, and the strategies and the scripts and everything to handle those. So if you're looking to generate more sellers, you should be on that call. As always, if you need anything, feel free to reach out. You can always jump on my private Facebook group. If you're not already a member, just open up your phone, point your camera at that QR code, and you will get there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. If not, I will see you next week, and thank you for being on.
Hey, Ryan, can you go
Yeah.
back to the